Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's that time again. Time for another episode of In the Creek. You know, we are the longest running local hockey talk show. We started this show back in the late 80s, exclusively talking hockey, and nobody has been on the air talking hockey, sports in the tri-state area as long as we have. We've done it the best.
Means that we either been talking long about it because we're old.
Well, we are old, but it's because we do a damn good job. That's why. And in our episodes so far this year, we've covered more stories that you haven't seen anywhere on any of the other sports networks covered, and we've done them here.
I think the only thing we need more is another person on the set, like to add a female or something of that nature.
We'll talk about that a little later on in the show. I think we need more goaltenders up here. I'm working on that as we talk. But as always, my co-host with me today is Bob Nelson, and this is our first show back since the big trade deadline came and went. And Bob, I guess time to get your opinion on the trades and what happened.
What a disappointment. What a trade deadline disappointment. You name one trade that affected a team.
I think the Panthers made good trades.
Okay, well, but
to repeat.
Okay,
But
they also
really about it.
They also traded their security.
Okay, they're going short term, but
how do you trade when you have an aging goalie? Even though Bobrovsky's still one of the best goalies in the game.
Yes, playing well.
But how do you trade a young goalie? How do you trade a young goalie? What if Bobrovsky down the stretch, of his age, gets a little banged up or a little nicked up?
You're always doing the injury thing.
Because the NHL and their playoffs and their Stanley Cup pursuit is probably the toughest playoffs put your body through.
Sure, I'll go with that.
And the older you get, the harder it becomes to get that chance.
Yeah, but he's not like us going back on the ice again.
No,
he's not that old.
But I'm just saying, it happens. It could happen.
Yes, it
could. And then you lose your meal ticket, as Don Cheever would tell you when Don Cherry would tell you about when Cheever's got hit in the head with that puck and he's bleeding all over the ice.
Yep.
You know, that's a hard position to replace. And I know there's guys like Steve Penny, the Montreal Canadiens had that great run in the playoffs, for the Canadiens. But, they're not a dime a dozen.
No.
A good goaltending, everyone, for example, Crawford, all these, Osgood, all these guys got ripped on because, they're not great goalies. Well, they had to be a great goalie because they won a cup.
When they got into the playoffs, they turned it up a notch. Yeah.
And my belief is when you're taking a playoff run, you need that safety valve. And I know in today's game of hockey, goaltending is the most important thing.
It is.
And that's why we call the show what?
In the Crease.
Okay. So when the Penguins won their cup, they had Murray and Fleury.
Or Barrasso.
Yeah. And they had Peter Angelo when Barrasso got hurt.
Yeah.
To make that great save. Florida worries me. They're deep, but man, they better hope Bobrovsky don't get hurt. And I don't think like Toronto did enough. I know they got Lawton, and I think Lawton's a very good player, and he's a good up and down your lineup player. He can play any of the four center positions, first line, second line, third line, fourth line, great penalty killer. The Toronto improved their goaltending. They got Stolar, who was a third-string minor league goalie in Philly.
Yep.
And you know how many woes Flyers have had with goaltending.
There were a lot of teams that needed to make changes at net. None of them did.
And none of them did.
None of them did.
And again, that's why Florida didn't have to make a move. They'd still be the favorite. And they got probably the biggest pain in the backside in the league on their team now to go with the other pain in the butt, Tkachuk.
Well, that's good because now they're together and they don't have to worry about
now
going
they're
against
hard.
them. Right?
They're going to be a hard team to play against in the playoffs.
Yes.
But what about these other teams?
Well, in the offseason.
I mean, Colorado gave up. They traded a guy that got traded twice.
Yeah.
Because when they traded Rantanen, he couldn't even get a contract. Why would you trade for a guy like that and give up all this prospects and all these everything, and you can't sign him? What do you think you'd pick up the phone and say to his agent, hey, we're only making this trade if you sign here long term.
Right.
And they had to trade him away.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Brendamore. But because he got a guy that can put the puck in the net, and all of a sudden that guy left him. So, and the weird thing about the trade deadline is, which I agree that these GMs shouldn't wait till the trade deadline to pull off a trade. Because whether you believe it or not, that locker room culture and the on-the-ice culture that coaches have set up now, you can't just put a guy on a team and plug him in the lineup on the trade deadline the next day and expect him to get on his feet and running into the playoffs. That's why I like a lot of GMs like Rutherford has always been known to do. He'll trade for a player 2 or 3 weeks before the deadline. And I think more teams have done that. But again, I think GMs are not doing their homework. They're taking the sexy trade. They're not taking the trade that's going to help their club down the road and right now present.
They're looking for the PR trade.
They're looking for the PR trade.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're trading away players because they know next year their contract and they're not getting as much for them. Or they're trading contracts away that are bad to try to get out from under that contract instead of trading for players to win you a cup now. And I think GMs are below average in the league. You either have a GM like Rutherford who mortgages the future for the present and he's always all in, or you have a guy like Dubas who he makes trades to cut payroll because whoever was there, whether it was him, Hextall, Rutherford, Burke, made bad deals, so they have to get from under it, and they're willing to take whatever they want back.
Pens they were the second highest trade deadline team. Well, they were tied with Boston. Panthers made 5 trades. Boston and Pittsburgh made 4.
Yeah.
Boston pretty much eliminated themselves from the playoffs with their trades, and the Penguins, I think, did absolutely nothing to help their team.
No. And the funny part is they got rid of all these higher contracts, and I really think Cal made a big mistake by not getting rid of Raquel. Because they could have got probably a boatload for him for the trade deadline. They really could have.
Especially before the playoffs.
Correct. And they could have probably took Raquel and said, you want Raquel? Got to take our goalie. If that's what they want to do, move on from her. Like, I still think Jari's going to be a pretty good NHL goalie. I think he's very talented. I think he needs to go to another place to be talented. Because I really don't think Pittsburgh's defense helps any goalie. Now, I think a couple shows ago I basically said to you that you look at Jari's number and you look at Nedeljkovic's number. They were the same. Why was Jari getting picked on and Nedeljkovic was the next coming of Ken Dryden?
I
Same
don't
stats.
think they saw him that way.
Oh, but they would rather had Nedeljkovic in net than Jari.
Who would have rather? Not me.
At least the fans.
Well,
and
if
obviously,
you want to know
obviously
anything
the
about
coach,
hockey, you don't go to Pittsburgh fans.
Obviously, the coach and the GM thought the same thing because how many days did Jari spend in Wilkes-Barre? And then the worst part about it was you got a goalie named Sergei who's 12-0 up until the Penguins had to call up all these guys to help their team, which is going nowhere. So, he lost his first game in Wilkes-Barre. He's 12-1. He was 16-6 in Wheeling. And this kid, you want to talk about a goaltender? You want to talk about a guy, maybe give him a couple games because you're playing for a draft pick now.
Well, that's what I thought. Everybody's saying, oh, he's too young to bring up. But this is a perfect time because the games don't mean anything.
When did Fleury start?
Precisely.
When did Roberto Luongo start?
Precisely.
When did Tom Barrasso start? I mean, okay, the only thing I could understand Pittsburgh, why they're keeping him in Wilkes-Barre and not using him, because he pretty much, in my opinion, just jumped up the depth chart and bumped Bloomquist down a notch. Because when Bloomquist got called back up, he was atrocious too.
Right, he was.
So, to me, is it they want to build 2 young goalies and have them experience a playoff run in the AHL? Because they're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I think he's staying down right now. Because Wilkes-Barre has a very good chance of going deep in the playoffs and maybe winning their championship down in the AHL.
Down there for a while.
And I think that's what they're going to do. But if it was me, before they called up Jari, when he was like 9-0, I'd probably gave him a game or two in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, just to get his feet wet.
Just to give him a little taste of it.
Sure.
And you never know. They could have went on a 20-game winning streak, and they could have maybe made a wild card playoff spot.
Yeah.
On a young goalie. And now all of a sudden going into next season, you're like, I got my goalie.
Isn't that what the Blues did with Binnington?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay, so there we go with the trades and all that happy horse. You know, I think it's been about, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 years that we haven't really had spectacular trade deadlines.
No.
Nothing big has happened.
Very vanilla.
Yes,
Yeah.
very much so.
I mean, like I said, the only GM that I could really tell you that was very aggressive on trade day is usually Rutherford.
Yeah.
Rutherford's the guy that, again, he'll give you any prospect you want,
Yeah.
but he wants to try to win a cup.
Yeah.
And I think this might have been the first year that he hasn't really made a big splash trade.
Well.
But then again, Vancouver's been up and down on a roller coaster.
Yeah, and Thatcher Demko has been.
Yeah, well.
He's turning into a Band-Aid.
Yeah, well, when you don't have goaltending, I don't care how good your team in front of you are.
Yeah, that's true. All right, let's move on just a little bit, shall we? This is something that, when I saw this at first, I thought, kind of interesting. But then I actually got to see one of these things, a section of it, and I thought, this might not be too bad. It started with the Bruins and
go figure.
Bob's favorite sports broadcast network, NESN.
Yeah.
And the National Hockey League. And what they did was they took a game between the Bruins and the Panthers, and they animated it and made like these little pudgy little characters out of the hockey players, and the whole concept.
They look like Phil Kessel.
Yeah, good point. They do, and watch Phil come storming into the studio.
Hey, I got a hot dog. If you need one, Phil.
Him and Koharski having another donut.
Oh.
Anyway, we digress. They do this thing where they actually take the game, they animate it, and the idea or the concept is to try to get kids involved, younger kids involved, and get them familiar with the sport. I don't think this is a terribly bad thing. They've done several since the Boston.
You said that with
Panthers
a straight
thing.
face too.
I did say that with a straight face. I have a caveat to that, but before I get to the caveat, have you seen any of these, and what's your opinion?
Well, let's bring back the blue puck and the robots.
Okay.
If you're going to do stuff like this. You want to teach kids hockey? Go sign up for Learn to Play Hockey at your local rink. You want to teach kids to play hockey? Go get a ball, a net, couple sticks, and set it up in the middle of the street. This ain't teaching kids anything, because guess what? When they're watching TV, there's a video game on the screen. You have a better chance of putting an NHL 2025 in their hands than them going to sit here and watch this. I don't think this is going to be very good for the game.
I
don't think
this
it's
is
going
for a lot younger kids. Than
Yeah,
what you're
but
talking
a
about.
lot younger kids are using cell phones now, and they're
true.
playing video games. They're you drive down the park. When we were kids, it was football, baseball, street hockey, or basketball. You drive by parks nowadays, no one's doing anything.
Yeah.
There's little communities, like we're fortunate, our home studios in Bethel Park, and they've always been a glorified hockey area, and they've always done hockey right. And when Blade Runners had their rink there, now it's the Y. That's promoting hockey for kids.
Yeah.
And
that's when Bethel was strong. And,
Yes,
yeah,
but this isn't doing anything except making the game kind of like copying off of football almost,
Okay.
because they do that for football now.
Yep.
And they've been doing it for football for quite some time now.
But it must be successful for football. That's why hockey.
Yeah, but football is a, $1 billion
Yeah.
adventure, and hockey's only $1 million adventure. Millions. I mean, like let's be honest.
Yeah.
Football prints their own money.
Yeah.
Football could take their leftover resources and give it to hockey, and I bet you their football resources is still more capital than the hockey resources from Square One.
Definitely, yeah.
And that's why it works in football, because 24/7 for 365 days, especially living in the city of Pittsburgh.
Mm.
Hockey is a cult. It's still a cult here, but football is life here.
Yes.
You know, you have a baseball team that's 100 years old, and they were even ahead of hockey, even though they have an owner that doesn't want to do anything.
Right.
And they're still ahead of hockey here in Pittsburgh. Because look at the attendance in Pittsburgh this year.
Yeah.
You could go down to any game in this after the Four Nations and walk up to the ticket booth and get a ticket and go watch your Penguins play.
Yep.
And it was never like that.
No. Well, it wasn't like that for a long time. Yeah.
How many
Yeah, you're
years
right.
in a row they sell out?
Yeah, and they got haughty. They got a haughty attitude on that. I should mention her name, but that woman that was in charge, I won't mention her name. And she had the big attitude, and you know.
And think of it this way: this company, your Boston boys,
Yeah.
they own the Penguins,
Yeah.
and they also own the sports network here,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
do, I think, a pretty bad job on that network. I'm not going to say.
Well,
the
I never
network,
liked Nesson anyway. I thought they were horrible.
but you know they
For years they used that Jack announcer. He was terrible.
yes. But I'm
Terrible.
just saying, and look at all the announcers we have in Pittsburgh. I mean, I also like to pass our condolences to being an announcer, Mike Lang, who passed away this year.
In fact, I had done an exclusive interview with him right after the Pens won their first cup against Minnesota, and Dave and the guys resurrected that. That was from '92, and we're airing it on the BB TV
tremendous
network.
individual.
It
what
was
he
a
did
good-
for
good
hockey
interview, too,
in
yeah.
Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
and you know what, that wasn't even his dream job.
No, he wanted to be a baseball announcer.
Wanted to be for the Giants.
Yeah, he wanted that badly.
And he
said
had a
that
little
on
bit
the-
with KBL.
Said that on the show.
Had a little bit of
Yeah.
baseball. Him and Steve Blass did a little bit for KBL
Yeah.
that one year for the Pirates. He worked a
He
little
liked
bit
it
for
a
the
lot,
Pirates.
but he
And you know,
got
he
stuck with
he
hockey.
came in with Terry Schiffar. He worked 1 year and then left and then came back, and then he was the announcer of your Pittsburgh Penguin
Yeah.
for the rest of his life, pretty much.
Yeah, good guy. I liked him a lot. Hey, the caveat I had about this program, let me tell you what it is. They worked the game around a little story. With the Boston-Florida game, it was a story of kids being off school because of a snow day, and they worked the game around the fact that the kids weren't in school that day and could watch the game. The lessons, if you will, on these broadcasts are to promote STEM-focused lessons. Now, I don't know, you folks who aren't involved in education at all might have fallen all the hype on STEM. STEM is not as the great program that they say it's supposed to be. Back years ago, they did a survey and found out that as girls did not like science and math. They didn't gravitate toward those subjects. They gravitated toward more of the art subjects in school and liked those a whole lot better, and basically didn't do well in math and science. And right away the social engineer said, this is wrong, we need to change this because men and women are equal. They're not. And so STEM was born out of this as a way of promoting science, technology, and making it girl-friendly so that more girls would get involved.
So like education for sports like Title IX.
Math and science. Yeah, kind of like that type of thing. I never liked STEM. I thought it was pretty much a waste of time. I think, you know, if you got a strength, you go to the strength. You don't force somebody. It's like somebody who's a stand-up goaltender and can stop the puck. Why would you force them to be a butterfly goalie? You know what I'm
We
saying?
want to ruin your knees and hips.
Yeah, so there it is. So that's the one caveat I have about this program that I don't particularly care for, and that is, you know, the whole STEM thing involved in there. I just that's
See, I don't
that's
think
a weakness.
I don't think sports should be compared to maybe a teaching graph, because sports already teaches you without you have to come up with a fictitious story to.
Well, it should.
I mean,
A lot of
because
that depends on the coach, though.
But you get pride, you get respect, you get hard work ethic.
You can.
You know.
Yes, you can.
And that's the lesson of playing sports. Besides, you know, getting a cardio
Well, definitely that.
workout.
Definitely that. Okay. And one last thing we'll say about this program is Andrew Ferencz is providing analysis on these games. So
Who?
If I'm not mistaken, I believe there was a time when he wore the black and gold. So
He wore black and gold twice.
yeah,
Played
so,
for the Bruins too.
yeah, that's right. You're right. So Pittsburgh
Or
fans
should
may
we say
remember
black
him.
and yellow because one team said they couldn't wear the other team's black and gold, but the Penguins wore it before the Bruins.
Well, Boston's black and yellow,
Yes.
and frankly, I liked it a whole lot better when the Pens had that Vegas gold.
I liked it better when the Penguins were black and blue because every NHL team made the Penguins black and blue.
Okay, let's get to this. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and I'm going to go on a bit of a rant here, and then I'll let Bob come in and take the counterpoint. But there are currently no, let me say that again, no female hockey announcers in the National Hockey League worth their salt. None of them should have a job, especially Emily Kaplan, okay? Now, let's back up just a little bit. Our president, who is doing great things for the country and making this America's golden age, said basically there are two genders, male and female. Gotta agree with him. Kind of like the way that thinks, okay? Let's put that aside. He also said men have no business being in women's sports because of the vast difference between men and women. Men are faster, men are bigger, men are stronger. This is just the way it goes. So if you have a female ex-hockey player who maybe won Olympic gold, or maybe her team won whatever trophy they give away for women's hockey and won it 4 times, they're playing at a level that's not even close to professional men's hockey. This is like taking someone from a midget team, putting them in the booth, and having them comment on a professional game. How is a woman hockey player who is nowhere near the ability of a male player sitting in a booth and telling players and coaches what they should do and how they should do it? Nonsensical. It's nonsense. Just to send a virtual signal, just to say we are politically correct, and some of them have voices that sound like fingernails on a child. Anytime I turn on a game and there's a female announcer, the mute button goes on. I know enough about hockey, I can watch the game and see what the hell's going on. And these women never say anything worthwhile. In fact, that AJ Mazenko, and she always works with Kenny Albert, I would buy Kenny Albert rolls and rolls of gaffer tape so he could just take them in the booth and shut her up. These women are horrid. Horrid. Students I taught when I was teaching broadcasting were a hell of a lot better than any of these women are. Were they trained? I don't know. But whoever the league is using to train them needs to be fired. They're terrible. Now, I've said my piece.
Well, I'm going to tell you two women that if you're going on basically your rant and rave over there.
Yep, my rant and rave.
First, Manu Rioum, she could announce a hockey game if she was trained properly. And why? Because you just said no woman played in she played in the NHL, whether it was an exhibition game or not.
You know, Bob,
so wait
she
a minute,
was
wait
a
a minute,
PR stunt.
Wait a minute.
She was
wait
a
a minute.
You remember the pool that was going on?
What did you say?
And the referee won the pool. You remember that?
What did you say?
Yeah, you're smiling.
What did you say? Okay, and number 2, if you want to throw out a great female announcer and works the rink very well, Leah Hextall. Sorry.
No,
she's
you're doing
incredible.
that because
she's
you know,
incredible.
You're up
First
Ronnie's backside.
First of all,
she is not incredible.
She is related to Ron Hextall.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, but she does her due diligence. She's very good at reporting hockey. She understands the game because she grew up around the game because of her uncle, her cousins, and her father. Okay. So I would say not all women should be thrown down this tube but I agree there are some bad female announcers. Just like I'm going to sit there and look you straight in the eyes and say there's a lot of bad male announcers. Just because you played in the NHL don't mean you can be play-by-play analyst.
Correct.
And don't mean you shouldn't go. And
should we mention Bob Airy at this point?
I didn't say it. But my thought process is this. I can think of one professional athlete that did his due diligence, and it's not hockey, and he's one of the best sports analyst broadcasters in football.
Who's that?
A guy named Max Starks. And I can tell you, guarantee, he did it the right way.
Well, so did Dan Deerdorf.
Okay, so he went to school in Pittsburgh while he was a player to get his broadcasting degree. And he works for the Steelers. He works for the NFL. He does some radio stuff. He does a little bit of college work. But he did it the right way. He went, because his philosophy. Now, I know a woman who's a college professor that had him in class. And just because he was Max Starks, a former pro football player and a pro football player, he said, I got to do this right. And again, if you're not trained, that's one thing. But you can be born and raised a female and come from a hockey background and be very good at understanding the game and analyzing the game.
But that doesn't make you a good announcer.
But sometimes some of the best coaches and some of the best analysts weren't very good at the sport. Like Scotty Bowman never played in the NHL. In my opinion, he might have been one of the best NHL coaches to ever live.
He probably was.
You know,
I agree.
And you know, it doesn't matter if, you know, my opinion, it doesn't matter if you're male or female. If you're trained properly and have a good eye for whatever sport you're following.
So what you're saying is that it's not that these women are incompetent, it's that they're poorly trained.
I think they're poorly trained first.
And they shouldn't even be on the damn air. That's how it is.
And number two, I hate to say this, but I think too much of the network pigeonhole these females.
No, I'll agree with that.
You know, because most of these women that are commentating, they're very attractive looking. And again, it goes back to a couple other females in other sports, like Susie Colburn lost her job because she knew the game. She was great analyzing football. Her and Merrill Hodge would sit on the show on the NFL Network or ESPN, and they could break down film like no one. I know she never played a game of football, but she was very good at, because she did her homework. She was trained properly. She listened. She was very good at getting her viewpoint out of her mouth. But again, if she was a 10 instead of maybe a 7 or 8, she'd still have her job.
You see how maybe you're all these examples, you're going to football, you can't go to hockey because there's nobody in hockey that's worth their salt. Get them out. Get them out.
If anything, it's going to be more. Instead of having an analyst, now you're going to have a play-by-play caller.
This is why we have the mute button on TV. They're trying to show how kind and sympathetic they are, and the bottom line is they can't handle the job. Whether you want to say it's training that they've done badly, whether you want to say that they've been thrown in because of this DEI stuff, well, you have to have a woman. No, you don't. You need somebody that can talk the game.
You have guys that are equally bad.
They're horrible.
You have guys equally bad.
Absolutely horrible. You do.
I mean,
you do. Which shows you
like whether it's a man or a woman.
Which shows you what kind of talent and skill you need to do that broadcast.
That's why guys like Mike Lang aren't.
And of course, we'll end this by saying that we had it right when we did it. Hey, I'd love to talk about this a whole lot more, but we're fresh out of time here, and we got to run. We got a lot more to talk about, so you might see us in these same outfits again. We'll try to do maybe another show and finish up the last 2 pages of our script here. Until then, we're all sitting back waiting for the playoffs, and Bob and I will have a good playoff episode coming up for you in just a couple of weeks. Until that time, remember that when it comes to hockey, if you're in the game, you're in the crease. Good night, everyone.
Slide. Keeling goes into the corner, loses it. Puck is back of the Toronto Nets, and they're having a hard time now keeping it away. Andy Blair rushes up with Gracie, is outskated at center, and the regulation time is nearly up.